Okay. Okay, so are you ready? We're here with Matt Connolly. He's running for the 17th District of Pennsylvania, and he's agreed to talk to us about global warming. So, not global warming, really climate change is what the people are calling it now.
They're calling it now because if you remember, in the 1970s, the cover of Time magazine was all about the coming ice age.
Right.
Yeah.
So, my question is, should the government protect us against climate change?
Well, you're asking a question with a certain supposition that I don't agree with. Protect us against something that isn't proven, that is it man-made or not. You know, they're talking about different cycles of the sun, that we could be going into a slow period in the next 30 years.
Very good point.
Now, wouldn't it be terrific if all of the, quote, warming that's going into the oceans and everywhere else is acting like a bank of heat? So when the
Absolutely,
sun,
I agree 100%.
When the sun does slow down, we have that bank of heat to give back to the earth and kind of balance things out, kind of
Right.
nature's way of averaging.
Right, but there was no false premise in my question. You could say, no, the government should not protect us against this because it's not a danger.
Okay, right. So you're
I'm not
assuming
saying
with the
it's
question that it's a danger.
No, I'm
Okay.
not assuming.
I don't see it as a danger. When you look at the cycles of things, when you have more carbon dioxide, you create more trees, more greenery. You get more nitrogen. If the cycle increases, when you have less, you get less.
Right. So what you were talking about before is very important. What are the factors that actually control the Earth's temperature?
Well, there's quite a few, far more than I know. I am not a climate expert by any stretch of the imagination, but there are a lot of factors. Cloud cover is one of those parts of the global models they have never been able to factor in, and that's one thing that all climate scientists agree on, is they can't quite factor in cloud cover versus temperature versus refraction, etc.
How about the sunspot activity on the sun? The sunspots on the sun. As far as I know, if there's very little sunspot activity, doesn't matter what we do here with regards to carbon dioxide, it's going to be cold. And if there's a lot of sunspots, doesn't matter what we do here, it's going to be hot.
Well, one of the interesting things, you know, we talked about...
Does that ring a bell?
That definitely rings a bell. You know, the California folks are going through a drought. And they say it's the worst drought in 1,200 years.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's terrible, right? So then I say to them, well, how did they solve the problem 1,200 years ago? And silence, because no one solved it. It solved itself. It's part of the cycle. We are not going to understand Mother Nature for a long, long time, if ever, because there are always factors that grow and change and evolve far beyond our understanding.
So, here's a question. Why did the environmentalists change the name of this issue that is, like Bernie Sanders says, it's the biggest danger to America?
So they say.
Why did they change it from global warming to climate change?
Well, because it stopped warming, see?
Well, if
you have climate change, it's called seasons.
Right.
I have 4 of them every year.
But if you argue that there's going to be global warming, you can be disproven, right? If the temperature doesn't go up, you are proven wrong, right?
That's correct.
But if you argue that there's going to be climate change, can you be proven wrong?
No, and that's an excellent point. You can describe things in a minute-by-minute basis and
it's
say
always going to be climate change.
That's why you look at the big
There
picture.
always was, there always will be,
That's
and
correct.
so
you know,
there's another point here, which is climate change is unmeasurable. There's no unit to say, well, climate change went up 3%, because there is no unit that measures climate change. But there's a measure of the temperature. Now, if you can say the temperature went up 3%, we know what that means. So if the average temperature of the Earth moved up or down, that's a specific objective fact. But if you say, whoever said climate change increased 3%, how do you calculate climate change?
It's not quantifiable. Yes.
It's not quantifiable. Yes. You took the
word right out of your mouth.
Exactly. That's what a congressman should always do.
They've only been really recording temperature in this world since about the late 1800s, which is a tiny speck of the whole world, existence. So to look at something that small in a scale this big and try to make conclusions about it, regardless of the trend, is not called science. Usually it's called an agenda, and usually the agenda is anti-capitalism. And as you can see,
Excellent.
I heart capitalism.
Right, and to follow up on your point, the whole idea is to try to control the population based on regulations of this climate change scare, which hasn't been proven, and but the government will then get the power to make you do what they want you to do. What they weren't able to do with socialism, they try to do with climate change.
It's called guilt and fear, two very powerful things. They make you feel guilty because you're ruining the planet because of your terrible lifestyle, which is so much better than anyone else's, and they want to make you fear for the future that if you keep doing this, then we're all going to pay the ultimate price. So, and it's always 5 to 10 years away. Remember in the 80s? In 10 years, the oceans are going to be dead. In Al Gore in 2008, in 5 years,